I remember the cold. It was the kind of cold that didn't just bite at the flesh. It stole the very warmth from the soul, leaching hope out of the stone and the concrete. I felt it, even inside that nerve center of the Reich, the air heavy with stale smoke, burnt maps, and the ghost of 1,000 desperate decisions. This wasn't the front, but the frost from the Eastern Front had somehow penetrated the thick, reinforced walls, settling in the bones of the men who stood around the enormous map table. I was there, a silent observer in the shadows, tracing the slow, deliberate movement of history toward its inevitable abyss. I saw the faces, pale and tense under the weak electric light that perpetually flickered as if reflecting the unstable mental state of the man who commanded us all. The walls of the headquarters, be it the damp earth of the Wolfschanz or the deeper silence of the bunker, were not a shield. They were a magnifying glass for delusion. My focus, in those final months of 1942, was pinned not on Berlin but on a single devastated city hundreds of miles away, Stalingrad, a name that became a wound on the German conscience. I could almost hear the wind howling through the shell-shocked ruins, the relentless tick of the Soviet countdown, even over the hushed, careful reports being delivered to the Führer. The reports themselves were coded masterpieces of denial. They spoke of local difficulties and temporary withdrawals, but I saw the truth etched on the operational maps. The red arrows of the Soviet counteroffensive, Operation Uranus, had not merely halted our advance. They had performed a surgical The Sixth Army, commanded by Field Marshal Paulus, 300,000 men strong, was no longer an attacking force. It was a perfectly sealed, frozen tomb. I watched him, the Führer, standing over that table. His face, once taut with a fanatic's energy, was now showing the strain of sleepless nights and the corrosive power of his own unshakable belief in will over reality. He believed the map was the world, and that if a line was drawn, it became I felt a cold sweat on my palms as I listened to the pronouncements. His voice, usually a raging torrent, was now lower, more conspiratorial, more dangerous. He refused to look at the logistical figures. He saw only betrayal in anyone who dared suggest retreat. I remember the radio messages filtering in the desperate clinical pleas from the cauldron. They were running out of everything: ammunition, medical supplies, fuel, and most critically, time. And then came the ultimate promise, the magnificent, hollow lie from the Reichsmarschall Gring, delivered with the arrogant confidence of a man miles from the mud and the dying. The Sixth Army would be supplied by air. Luftbrücke, an air bridge. I heard the whispers of the General Staff, their silent calculations to supply 300,000 men, and their horses and equipment would require over 700 tons of supplies per day. The Luftwaffe was already struggling in the Russian winter, losing aircraft at an appalling rate. I knew with a certainty that chilled me more than the Russian weather, that this air bridge was a fantasy, a cruel ideological illusion designed to sustain the Führer's ego, not the soldiers' lives. Yet, I saw no one challenge it directly. The fear of his rage had become a stronger force than the fear of military defeat. The weeks blurred into a terrifying montage. The relentless sound of the typewriter clacking out, hold fast, the constant low-level drone of aircraft engines taking off with pitifully small loads, and the heavy thud as they often crashed, overloaded and outmatched, into the Russian snow. I could smell the faint, coppery scent of blood that seemed to cling to the reports, brought in on the frozen boots of the few couriers who managed to breach the perimeter. Then came the day. I mark it as the point of no return, the day the doom was truly sealed. Paulus, facing the inevitable, signaled for permission to attempt a breakout, a desperate dash westwards to link up with a tentative relief force. It was the last, faint glimmer of professional military sense. It meant abandoning the city, but it meant saving the men. I watched the map room fall into an almost sacred silence when the message arrived. It was translated, read, and passed to the Führer. His hand, shaking slightly, slammed down on the table, not in rage, but in a terrible, final resignation to his own delusion. No retreat, he hissed. The Sixth Army will remain. Every man will fight to the last bullet. I saw the looks exchanged by the officers, a sudden, profound comprehension of the tragedy. It was not a military order. It was a human sacrifice. I understood then that Hitler was no longer fighting the Soviets. He was fighting history, and he was using the lives of his best men as bargaining chips against fate. His refusal was the ultimate statement of totalitarian ideology. The life of the individual soldier means nothing when weighed against the idea of the Reich. I felt a cold wave of betrayal wash over me. The same wave that must have hit every soldier freezing in the foxholes of Stalingrad. They weren't fighting for ground anymore. They were fighting to delay their own execution, ordered by the very man who promised them glory. I saw the adjutant quietly, slowly, transcribing the final, damning directive. The letters seemed to glow on the page. Festung. Stalingrad, Fortress Stalingrad, a fortress made of ice, rubble, and human courage. From that moment, the narrative changed. It was no longer a war of maneuver. It was a slow, agonizing death watch. I followed the reports detailing the consumption of their last rations, the gruesome sight of men eating their own horses, the sound of the final transmissions fading into static. The letters from the front smuggled out on the last few planes spoke not of victory but of a quiet, dignified, desperate testament to human resistance trapped between the brutality of the Soviets and the unforgivable hubris of their own high command. I remember the last message from Paulus' simple, clinical report that the fighting had ceased, followed by a radio silence so profound it seemed to suck the very air out of the headquarters. I watched the Führer turn from the map, his face expressionless, already planning the next, equally impossible defense. But for me, the war had momentarily stopped. The Sixth Army was gone, and when I close my eyes, I can still hear the collective groan of those 300,000 souls, not the sound of battle, but the quiet, final thud of a frozen rifle dropping into the snow. The smell of victory always fades, but I know the scent of that betrayal will linger forever. A bitter frost on the memory of what man is capable of, both in courage and in catastrophic self-deception. The silence that followed was the heaviest sound I have ever known.